Hello and welcome to Fortress, Alaska. Today we're going to talk about whether or not the 1911 is obsolete or not. Been hearing a lot of people recently saying that the 1911 is obsolete or it's obsolescence, whatever. So sit back, enjoy the few shooting videos, and we'll discuss whether or not the 1911 is actually obsolete or not. When To start off with, about the 1911, let's talk about the pros, and then we'll talk about the cons. So let's start with the pros. Like I said, first of all, the 1911, this gun right here, is an extremely accurate pistol. Generally, they're going to be more accurate than the person holding them. There are very few exceptions to that rule, but most people cannot outshoot their 1911. To be honest, most people can't outshoot any pistol they own, but the 1911 is an accurate pistol. It, in general, will have the best semi-auto trigger you are going to find anywhere on any production pistol. Now, custom guns, that's another issue. You want to spend $3,000-$4,000, yeah, you'll get a better trigger. But for a production run gun, the best trigger you're going to find is on a 1911. Now, they are extremely thin. And for comparison, I have a SIG 229. This is a compact gun. It's full size. But look at the difference in thickness. So as you can see, in general, the 1911 is going to be a very slim, slender gun, which makes it easy for carry.
These are Largo. No shit, Largo.
They are also reliable. You hear a lot about 1911s having problems, this and that. Well, there are two reasons for that. Well, actually, it's probably more than two. One is a lot of people have surplus 1911s from the military, or their only experience with the 1911 was in the military. Basically, the government stopped buying 1911s after World War II. And people in the military were still using those 1911s into the 1980s and 90s and 2000s. So those guns were well worn out. So they weren't utterly reliable anymore. Also, 1911s were often used for competition shooting and bullseye shooting, where accuracy was more important than reliability. And for many years, many people tinkered with and modified the 1911 and didn't know what they're doing. Oh yes, they're competent on working on guns. But a gun is an entire system. You can't just change one thing and expect everything else still to function right. So there are a lot of issues like that. Also, if you make it really, really tight for accuracy, you give up reliability. The other thing is the gun was originally designed only for ball ammunition. And until manufacturers changed from that, it was only reliable with ball ammunition. It's what the gun was designed for. It's not that it's not reliable. It was being used outside of its specifications. So you get a modern 1911 that's made to use hollow point and other types of ammo, you'll be just fine. Granted, the old classics, they prefer ball ammunition. And I would like to point out, this gun I got in 2011. It's a 100th anniversary model. And I've only had one or two hiccups with it since then. It's had thousands of rounds through it, but I've only had one or two malfunctions. So it is reliable enough for almost everybody. Now, in addition to being those things, it's a classic, and everybody likes a classic. And believe me, you're carrying a 1911, people are going to notice, especially if you carry outside the waistband. It's a classic. Now, it's also powerful. 1911 45 ACP is a powerful round. And remember, all the bullet technology that makes a 9mm better also makes a 45 better. So it's a powerful round. Now you can also get 1911s in 10mm. And no one's going to tell me that a 10mm isn't suitable for self-defense. A 10mm 1911 is an awesome gun. If you live in the South or in other parts of the world, you may not be able to get 45 ACP. So the 1911 is very popular in other countries in 38 Super, where 45s and 9mm are restricted. So the 38 Super is also an excellent round. And if you really must have 9mm, you can get a 1911 in 9mm. Now they're also safe. Now this particular one is not as safe as the newer design, the Series 80 design, which has a firing pin block. This one does not. So this one can go off if it is dropped. Just the inertia of the firing pin going forward after hitting the ground suddenly can cause the round to go off. The Series 80 models have a firing pin block, which makes that impossible. So once you get to the more modern ones, you are fine. They're extremely safe. This one's extremely safe if you don't drop it. You have the grip safety. You also have a manual safety. Remember, the gun was designed to be carried cocked and locked, the safety up, with the round in the chamber. That is extremely safe. You have to depress the grip safety, remove that safety, and then the gun will fire. In this condition, the gun is not going to accidentally go off unless you drop this one, which does not have the firing pin block. And it's specifically made that way, but since the 1980s, hence Series 80s, they have a firing pin block for safety. So the older ones are not as safe, but that's pretty much all older semi-automatics that have the firing pin block, and you'll find it on almost all new ones. In fact, the CZ75s didn't have a firing pin block. The Series B does. The ones before that didn't. Hey, shoot.
Pull your back. Oh, the injector's right there. Yeah.
Oh.
Never use it because it's hard. Well, that's the run was great in 9mm. Yeah. I can't stand that. Yeah. It's very disappointing. Now I'm curious because the 9mm have the same head size. I use that pole.
So there's another pro. Another pro, tons of aftermarket support. If you can't find aftermarket support for 1911, you're not looking. Everything you can imagine is out there for a 1911. So, and you can get them with rails. This one doesn't have rail. Once again, this is the 100th anniversary model. You can get them with rails. You can get them milled for optical sights. You can get all kinds of sights, grips. You can do anything you want with a 1911. There's more support for that than you can imagine. About the only thing that there might be more aftermarket supplies for is a Glock 19. And even that, I'm not sure. It's probably going to be close. Glock 19 is the most popular gun in the world, I believe. But I think you're going to find an awful lot of aftermarket support for 1911. Now, another pro are all the price points. There are lots and lots of price points. You can get very inexpensive 1911s that are reliable, and you can go up to the sky's the limit. You can pretty much get any price point you want. But you can get a really good 1911 in the $1,000 to $1,200 range that'll take care of all your needs. You can get ones that cost 4, 5, 6 times that. That's up to you. You can get cheaper ones, which, again, they're cheaper, and they will be reliable. But they may not be as reliable. I think the sweet spot for 1911s is that $1,000 to maybe $1,300 range. And also, along with other aftermarket support, there are tons of holsters available for the 1911. You can get anything. If a company makes a holster, they make a 1911 holster. So you can get everything you could possibly want. So those are some of the pros that I thought of. If you can think of some more pros, go ahead and put them in the comments below. Watch some more shooting, and then we'll come back with the cons.
Ow!
So the cons of the 1911. First of all, weight. This is a heavy gun. It's significantly heavier than this 229, which is fully loaded. This is my day-to-day carry gun. This one's empty and it's still significantly heavy, but it's all steel. This has a alloy frame, but that's my daily carry gun. So the 1911 is a heavy gun. It's also a big gun for overall size. As you can see the difference there. Height-wise, they're about the same, but lengthwise, it's a long gun. You can get smaller guns. You can get the commander size. and the officers. Now, I would not recommend the officer size for carry. I have found those to be less reliable than the commander or the full size. But if yours is reliable, go for it. Now, another con is capacity. In general, most magazines are 7 rounds for 45 ACP, 8 or 9 for other calibers. And you can get modern 45 ACP magazines that are 8 rounds. To me, that's plenty. For a lot of people, that's not enough. Mind you, my SIG with 357 SIG, or 40 Smith & Wesson, whatever I decide to outfit it for, it's only 12 rounds. So that's, what, 50% more? But if you can't handle a problem with 7 or 8 rounds of 45 ACP, I think the problem is you and not the gun. But anyways, some people consider capacity a limiting factor. So yeah, that's a con. 45 ACP is single action only. Not my preferred choice for a carry gun. I prefer single double action for additional safety of having that long first trigger pull. I don't mind having 2 different sets of trigger pulls. But it is single action only for a true 1911, so that could be a con. The perceived reliability is a con. So many people have been convinced that these guns are not reliable. For what reason, I don't know. That if you perceive it not to be reliable, then it's not. It's a con. You're not going to trust your life to it. You'll leave it at home. You'll leave it in the car, which is also a problem with the size, is you'll leave it at home or leave it in the car. But if you can carry one, it's good. Now, it's a pro and a con is the cost. Good ones, I'd say in the $1,000 to $1,300 range. Whereas you can get a plastic fantastic for the $500 range. A SIG 229, you're getting close to the 1911 in price, so or more. But if you just want a Glock 19 or one of the other plastic fantastics, yeah, you can get it for half the price of a 1911 for a good one. Another con, so people think the grip safety is a con because they don't grip it just right. It won't fire. Well, once again, this is a 100th anniversary model, so this is the original 1911. Modern ones will have a bump out on the grip safety to ensure that when you grip it, it will depress. There are other things they do to make sure that you're gripping it right and it depresses, so the grip safety can be a con. The manual of arms is tougher because if you're carrying it cocked and locked, you have to remember when you draw the gun out to sweep off the safety. Now, if you train yourself to always fire the gun with your thumb on the safety, that's not an issue because you always depress it and you will hold it down and it will never be an issue. But I've read and heard many stories where people pull out their gun and can't fire it. I've also seen people at the range not being able to fire their gun because they forget to remove the safety. So I can see where that can be a con to some people. But if you practice and train, the manual arms is not really an issue, but it can be a perceived con. I would also consider this as the last con. This is really, I would consider an expert's gun. Even though, there's not a lot of difference between the 229 and the 1911 and manual of arms, other than it doesn't have a safety. But even this I consider less training required than on the 1911. I like the 229 and 226 series. They're excellent guns. I think it requires less training to master them, even with the single action, double action trigger pulls. But the 1911, I consider it more an expert's gun. So that's another con.
Just for fun. Big white rock? Yeah. Name of that.
Okay, my final thoughts on the 1911. Is it obsolete? No, by no stretch of the imagination is it obsolete. It is reliable, it's accurate, it's powerful, it will do the job that you need. For the vast majority of interactions people are going to have where they need to draw a pistol, drawing the pistol usually ends the situation. Most times you're only firing 1 to 3 shots. 7 rounds is plenty. Is it the best choice? That depends on you. If you're willing to train a lot and learn how to use it and become an expert in the manual of arms to make everything be muscle memory, so you don't have to think to remove the safety, you do it without even thinking. When you draw the pistol out of your holster, the safety automatically comes off as you raise the gun up. Then it's not a problem, but you have to train to that point where it's muscle memory and you're not thinking to do it. So there is that issue. But is it obsolete? No. This will do the job, and you will not be undergunned or outmatched by anybody else with anything they have. You can take your most expensive, state-of-the-art, newest handgun, and if you don't train with it, you're worse off than you are with this. So train with this one, and you can use it for anything. So I don't think they're obsolete. I think there probably might be better choices for those who don't train or spend a lot of time shooting. But if you want to put the time and effort into it to be an expert with this gun, then go for it. It is not obsolete. It will do the job, and it will do the job excellently. And you will not be disappointed with it at all. Just remember the cons. It's a heavy gun. It's a long gun. It doesn't have a lot of ammo. Single action only. But if you're fine with all those things, it's not obsolete. There's nothing there's nothing about this gun that is obsolete.
Man, tiny little sides. Ow.
It's a little bit trickier to take down. I should have put that as a con. It is harder to take down and reassembly, but that's something anybody can learn. So, I don't see any problems with this. I think it is perfectly acceptable and better choice than a lot of other guns, actually. So, obsolete, no. Obsolescent, no. Don't think either one of those is true. I think it is just a different option for different people because everybody has what they like. If you're willing to work with it and like it, this is a better choice than a Glock 19. If you're not willing to spend the time with the gun, then no gun's a good choice for you. But if you're willing to put all the effort into learning to handle this gun, then this gun is one of the best choices you can make. So it can't be obsolete. Now, Glock 19 is a lot easier, or any of the plastic fantastics. They're a lot easier to use, a lot less training time, a lot less effort to make it be proficient with. That's true. Doesn't make something obsolete because it's harder to learn to use. Under that theory, a fighter jet would be obsolete compared to a P-51 because they're much harder to fly and learn how to fly. So that's not the issue. It's not how long it takes you to learn it, how hard it is to master. It doesn't make something obsolete. It just makes it different. If you're willing to put in the time, go for it. The 1911 is not obsolete. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. A little bit of information I provide on the pros and cons of the 1911. In my opinion, that is not an obsolete pistol and is perfectly acceptable for anything you may need it to do. In fact, I even know people who carry the 1911 as their wilderness gun for defense against bears and other predators that might be out there, include the two-legged kind. So no, I do not consider it an obsolete or even obsolescence. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed all the videos. Please like and subscribe, ask questions, do all the algorithm stuff. It really helps out. And as always, have a good day and get out shooting.